Welcome to episode 12 of Descent into the Wormhole, where we discuss everything from ancient civilizations to modern day social issues and everything in between. I'm Les.
And I'm Stevie J, and today we're going to take a look into the Earth, actually, into inner Earth and what is down there. So grab your tinfoil hat for this one and join us on this journey to the center of the Earth. How are you today?
I'm fantastic. How are you?
So good, so good. You know, we're not allowed to travel at the moment, but I feel like, you know, inner Earth, it's not off limits. There's no restrictions
No,
on that, so I feel like we can go.
they haven't told us we can't go.
That's true. That's true. Maybe
Yeah,
physically it might be a bit hard, but they haven't told us we can't, so we can give it a crack.
exactly. Yeah, we'll give it a good shot. But I'm excited for this one because this topic really intrigues me.
Me too. Me too. It's one of those things that, you know, lots of people always look outwards to the stars, and I get it, like so do I. But you don't often think about what's underneath us, and you know what is the Earth? Because you see in school when you're growing up, in books and everything like that, you just see, you know, there's the core, then there's the inner core, the outer core, the magma, the mantle, you know, all of that stuff, and you're like, oh
Yeah,
well, that's just what it is, you know. There's nothing but lava down there, but
yeah.
seems it's a little bit different to that.
Yeah, there's some stories floating around that maybe it's not quite true. And when you think about it, it's kind of more plausible than not.
Right. And one of those things. Oh, sorry. You keep going. You keep going.
No, I was just gonna say because NASA was trying to see what was in the moon because they couldn't do this with Earth because it would probably, implode us.
Right.
When they were trying to see like really what was inside of the moon, so they threw a bomb at it, and apparently it rang for 8 hours like an empty bell. So they're like, well, if that planet's empty,
Fantastic. I didn't even
and
realize that.
yeah, and I wonder if there are actual, like, if there's a civilization in the moon. I'm sure they didn't
Ooh.
appreciate that. Ringing for 8 hours. I'm
I
sure
just
they
had
didn't.
this image of everybody going, "Oh, what was that?" We don't even have any churches. What was that? This big bell ringing. Damn.
Oh,
That's a really good point, though, because the seismic, I guess, reaction or the seismic reading or
yeah,
whatever, like, if something's dense, it should be be dissipated very quickly,
yeah,
because
it'd be a thud.
yeah, because the waves, the vibration gets shortened very quickly. Um,
Hmm.
Very much like you have a soundproof wall, and if the wall's hollow, you hear everything through that wall. A lot of things you don't
Yeah.
want to hear sometimes. Um, but but like taking the chandelier swinging aside,
Yeah.
if you put soundproofing in between that wall, or even insulation in between the plaster, you know, on the wall, all of a sudden the sound starts deadening and going away very quickly. So
Hmm.
that makes a lot of sense. And we don't know. That's another podcast, but we don't know what's in the moon, what the moon is really, and that's a very interesting experiment that they did. I'm glad they didn't do it
Hmm.
here. But
Yeah.
with that being said, though, there's a there's a great theory about it and some really good research on it, actually, as far as inner Earth goes. And you
Hmm.
know, we both watch Gaia, which is a fantastic platform to watch for all of this kind of stuff. But one of those things was talking about inner Earth, and so the article that you found is very, very interesting. So I think we're going to read through that.
Yes. Yes, it's a really, really great article. And it just kind of ties everything up in a bow of everything that we watched. All the episodes,
Yes.
the multiple episodes that we watch just kind of sums it up nicely.
Yeah.
So
And it's a good summary in that sense of, you know, for people who have no idea about this topic, have never even thought about it, which is understandable. But for those people who know nothing about it, this is kind of going to be a good summary leading into our deeper discussion and some of our maybe tinfoil hat ideas about
y-
what's
yeah,
going on there. So
yeah, my tinfoil hat is snug on today. So underneath, so the inner earth, it actually has a name. It actually has a location name, and they call it Agartha. And throughout most ancient cultures, there is a common thread that has an inner world within it. And that's like the main that's the main thread that goes through most ancient cultures, is that there's another realm underneath us. And and they all have different reasons behind it. So this article says almost every ancient culture has a story or allusion to the inner realms of earth, as well as civilizations or people in the center of the earth. Many of these are places of purgatory where dead spirits reside, rather than a society currently flourishing. The Greeks spoke of Hades, the Christians refer to it as hell, and in Judaism it's referred to as Sheol. Did I say that right?
As far as I know, like as far as my Jewish expertise goes, I think that's right.
Okay, I'm sure someone will correct me if I didn't, and I apologize if I didn't. But most of these underground domains were more allegorical and religious tools used to deter people from sinning rather than realms activity being sought out. Interesting.
Very interesting. All right, and it goes on to say there are, however, closer depictions of Agartha described by some cultures with related cities and passageways to get there. In Tibetan Buddhism, there is the secret mystical city of Shambhala, located somewhere deep in the Himalayas that many have searched for, including a Russian mystic Nicholas Roerich. I hope I said that right. Though no one is known to have found it, some believe Shambhala could potentially be connected to Agartha. In Hindu and Celtic lore, which some believe shared an ancient connection through a lost antediluvian city, there are caves and underground entrances to subterrestrial worlds. Some have connected the Hindu land of Ayavarta, or Abode of the Excellent Ones, a land ruled by a supernal race thousands of years before the Great War, laid out in the Mahabharata. Many believe this ancient race to be of the same lineage as the ancient civilizations from Atlantis, Lemuria, and Mu that were wiped out by war and cataclysmic events, driving them underground to Agartha. There is another underworld in the Hindu Mahabharata known as Patala that others point to, as it shares many similarities with depictions of a subterranean world, though it is said that they are at war with the Agarthans. Patala is the seventh layer of the underworld in Hindu scriptures and is ruled by the Nagas, a half-human, half-reptilian species who are depicted with jeweled heads that light their realm. The Naga are a highly advanced race with cutting-edge technology. Occasionally, they are said to abduct, torture, and kill humans, though other accounts refer to them as having a positive impact on earthly events. Will we ever find out if there exists an underground civilization below the surface of the Earth? Good question. There have been attempts to drill down as far as possible to see what's there, and the Kola super deep borehole made it about 7 miles. The Russian team that led the operation didn't find Agartha, though it would likely be much further down. What they did find showed we really don't know exactly what's down there. Many of our theories were proven wrong, and we learned a lot about Earth's crust. For one, there was a layer of basalt known as the Conrad discontinuity completely missing, while the presence of water was detected where it shouldn't have been. This just goes to show we really don't know what's down there. I think that's a very, very telling thing to read through that, because, and that borehole thing is interesting, because they went down super far, but they didn't find what they thought they should. And let's be honest, they didn't go far enough to find Agartha or Patala or any of these places, but interesting.
Right. But did you notice? I noticed a reoccurring number in all that. That was
So
really
did
weird.
I.
Yeah.
So did I. And what was the number?
7.
Mm-hmm. Very
That
interesting.
seems to pop up a lot when you talk about inner earth.
Really
A
does.
lot. So there's something there. Like there's definitely something with that. So what is the significance of the 7?
Well, it's interesting. Now, one thing I want to sort of say as well is that if we were to assume that we're told the truth by the government, big laugh, laughing out loud. But if we were to assume that what they say is true, there's nothing there, it's just dirt and rock and lava and shit like that. If we were to assume that, then where do these stories come from? Is it purely a fanciful story created by several different civilizations across the planet on different continents, different places, who've come up with the
Right.
exact same story about what all of this is and what it looks like, and that it even exists? Because
Exactly.
there's a lot of different people who have either said they've been there, they've researched it,
Hmm.
they know about it. And some of those
Hmm.
civilizations, there's one in Mexico, I think it is, or South America, where the civilization, the tribe had never come in contact with modern civilization until very recently.
Right.
Yet they had detailed accounts of what inner Earth looked like.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
how?
And that's where they, yeah, that's where they were like, wait a minute. Like this isn't just made up lore. There's something, because
Mhm.
these people don't have any connection with anybody.
Right.
How would they know this except it was passed down through generation? Very interesting. Very, very interesting. And who they say is down there is also
Mm.
very interesting. That, it's they say, well, actually there was this lady, Sonia Grace, and she's a spirit traveler,
Yeah.
and very cool. And she spirit traveled down there, and she said that she met the ant people, and she's like, and these were like ant people, and they said that they built that area. That's because they say it could be like honeycombed, like it's not
Yes. Yeah.
just an empty, like an empty sphere.
Yeah.
It's honeycombed with different, almost with like different continents on it,
Hmm.
where these people live over here, much like we do up top.
Yeah.
it's it's like that, but it would just be different um creatures, so to be, or subhuman, or sub, whatever they want to call them.
Hmm.
But it said there was ant people, and they built it for the Atlanteans because they knew that Atlantis was going to fall. So
Yes.
they built it for the people, for some of the Atlanteans who could escape before it fell.
Yeah.
And so it is said that there are leftover Atlanteans
Yep.
thriving down there. The Mayans,
Hmm.
no one knows what happened to them.
And also one of our favorite topics too, and
Yes.
favorite civilizations, the ancient
Yes.
Egyptians as well.
Yes.
And isn't it
Yes.
interesting as well that they're all tied together? So they've talking about the number seven that
Yeah.
repeats over and over and over in all of this. How many layers are there? How many levels under the Egyptian pyramids or the Giza plateau are there?
7.
Hmm. Interesting. Interesting. And how many levels of society was there in Egypt? Ancient Egypt?
Oh, 7.
Hmm. I think we don't get too much into coincidence here. I like there's
Well, because we don't believe that there are coincidences.
exactly exactly. So there's all these sevens lining up everywhere across all of these ancient civilizations as well, and you got to look at, and we've talked about this, the disappearance of said civilizations. So it makes sense for the Atlanteans, for sure. Makes sense
Hmm.
for them. And the ant people,
Yeah.
I get that. Like, it would make sense if somebody had knowledge, had a connection. Maybe there was a conduit between Atlantis when it was up top and the people below, or the beings below. And so they're like, hey, this is coming. You guys can come stay with us, in a very
Yeah.
crude sense. But you look at the disappearance of these civilizations. The Mayans, according to mainstream history, just disappeared. The ancient Egyptians disappeared. Like
Yeah.
the Sumerians disappeared.
Gone.
So like, what happened to all of these ancient civilizations that just disappearing? It's not like there was big
Right.
wars waged where like every person died, to the last soldier, to the last person. They disappeared. So
Yeah.
it stands to reason, at least in my mind, that yeah, they went somewhere else. And we've discussed this and talked about them maybe going off planet somewhere, like going
Hmm.
to the stars somewhere, which is also very feasible. But
Yep.
where they could have gone underground as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And it makes sense. It makes sense. And there's also a rumor that Hitler escaped there.
Hmm.
I don't know what the criteria is to get down there, because we'll discuss like the different ways that
Mm,
are said to be able to get in, because it's not very easy, and I
right.
think I know why they don't want everyone and their aunt going down there.
Mm,
um that they say because Hitler was really obsessed with Antarctica,
yeah.
like extremely obsessed with Antarctica. And as we know, he was not killed in that bunker. He definitely got out alive. So where did he go? And when you're the most wanted man on the planet, where do you go? You go
Yeah.
underground, literally
Yeah.
underground. So it said that he went there, and as I said, I don't know what the criteria is. I don't know if you have to be a good person because obviously he wouldn't make it unless he put a wig on and disguised himself. I don't
Shave
know
the
how
mustache.
you
Shave the mustache. It's like, now you know who I am. Now you don't. Now you know who I am. Now you don't.
master of disguises.
Much like Superman. Um, well, but that's a really good a good point about Hitler, because, and I feel like I've got a possible answer for how he got in.
Mhm.
So certain criteria, of course, I feel you probably have to be of a certain type of character to be able to get in. But
Yeah.
Hitler being who he was, the resources he had at the time, and the sinister nature of the guy, I feel he probably located somebody who had access and held them at gunpoint to let him in and find it. And so was able to access it from then on. Like,
Yeah.
so, but yeah, it's so true. He never died in Berlin as they said he did,
Mhm.
and throughout his reign, he was always sending expeditions to Antarctica. They
Yeah.
were very clearly there, and um, also not just Hitler, thousands and thousands of Nazis all disappeared too at the end of World War II. Not like went to a different country, not went here, there, or whatever. Like actually just disappeared. So
Mm.
it would stand to reason to me that, yeah, they would go underground, and why not? And if there's a whole
Yeah.
entire world under there, then they could flourish, flourish. They're a bunch of assholes, obviously, but they could
Yeah.
flourish under there. Um, but that also brings me, to your point again about what the criteria is, because there was also on the opposite side, on the flip side of Hitler, an American admiral who was able to access inner Earth, and
Hmm.
he actually led an expedition. They called it an expedition. It was a mission. It was a military mission post World War II to try and find Hitler in Antarctica. So,
Hmm.
and he was also allowed in.
Well, yeah, didn't he have, because his plane went in now, he went, how far did he go? He went right in, didn't he?
I believe his diary notes said that he traveled 1,700 miles.
There's that seven again.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm. So the thing with this gentleman is that the diary was produced after he died. So there's always that little bit of speculation, and with anything anyone ever says, there's that little bit of speculation of how true is this. But he said he flew past the pole further than anyone has ever gone, and all of a sudden it went from nothing but snow and ice tundra to this lush green, beautiful, like huge plants, and he just kept going down and kept going down, and it was just this amazing place. And I guess because you're not paying attention to the curvature, and the hole's pretty big to get in, that he just went in, and
Yeah.
it was, and then he was able to fly back out, which is what a lot of people are questioning. Would he have been able to do that? But
Well, going back to the character of this guy and Hitler as well. So they said his diary basically said that he was allowed in. So the beings under the earth, or in the earth, allowed him in and actually took control and guided his plane to land. And he met with them, and they told him, some things about Earth and some things that shouldn't happen and that should happen. And it was sort of like a kind of a semi warning, but they were nice to him, and they treated him well, but they said that they let him in because of his good character. And
Mm.
they spoke to him because of his good character. And for some background on this admiral, he fought in World War One, World War Two, and was a Medal of Honor recipient as well. Met the president. Like, he was a very, very
Yeah.
highly respected, well-regarded individual. And he came back
That's
from. Sorry,
Sorry, I
you
just
go.
want to say, and that's also why a lot of people believe his diary, because of
Yes.
his stand-up character, that he, like, they're
Yeah.
like, why would he go and tarnish his all these things that he's actually
Yes.
done by saying something he didn't actually do.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
Why would he tarnish his good name and like his family name and all of that kind of stuff? Because this is in the 40s. Like, this happened in, I think, 1947. This happened. So,
Mm.
why would he tarnish all of that? And so they let him in. They had this conversation with him and everything, and he was able to look around. And then he came out, and he actually told the Pentagon what happened. But he was, of course, sworn to secrecy. And he mentions that in his diary, and he says, I've held this secret for so many years, and the truth really should come out one day, basically. But I'm a man of my word, or or whatever. And so he promised and said that he wouldn't share the secrets. So it was actually his son that shared the diary,
Yeah.
and shared all the notes. But he did mention one phrase which I found particularly curious, which is, so this is a guy who was part of expeditions, been everywhere in the world, all of that. And he said he's most interested in the journey beyond the pole. Now, he didn't say around the pole. He didn't say next to the pole. He didn't say anything like that. He said beyond
Mhm.
the pole. So I take that as he was referring to, you get to the pole and then you go further. Like, you go
Mhm.
deeper down. Because obviously, in his mind, the world's round. So if he keeps flying, he's just, going to go to the next country again. And
Yeah.
but that I found that really, really curious that he used that terminology.
Yeah, yeah, they use that a lot, beyond the pole, because I think well, because they kept saying that, like, you couldn't go any further than the pole, and the poles are where they say, well, there's different ways that certain people get in, I guess, depending on your technology and who you are on this planet.
Yeah.
But the poles are supposedly the way in. And when you look at pictures from NASA, the poles are usually blurred.
Yes.
You can't really see. So we actually have some pictures from, like, of the poles from one of the things that we watched on Gaia,
Yeah.
and it looks like there's holes in the earth, gaping massive holes in the earth,
Yep.
but they're in both places where no one would go. And these places are heavily watched, to see who's going to go. If you get too close, I'm
Yeah.
sure that you are, I don't know, struck down by lightning, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think that, because I always wonder, when it comes to these things, why the hell don't you just tell us from day one? Like, I mean, from day one of everyone being on this planet, we breathe air, we eat food, and the sun is warm. And,
Mm-hmm.
oh, by the by, there's people living underneath.
Yeah.
But we don't go there. We leave them alone. But I think, because if you just told people that, people wouldn't be afraid, because we're afraid of things we don't know, things that are different from us.
Yeah.
We automatically get our back up and we go into hostile defensive mode. Whether this being is a good being, a bad being, just a different one, we don't care. We get hostile no matter what. But what I think is that if they actually, like, start to let it slip, like, wait a minute, like, there's these beings down there, there's the Nordics, the Atlanteans, the Mayans, Sumerians, giants, ant people,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
list goes on and on.
Yeah.
So some guy is going to, see an opportunity to get a picture with a dead giant, that because he killed it.
Right. Yeah.
And what I'm also thinking is that whatever is down there is sustaining us.
Yes.
Like if you wipe it out, it could wipe us out. Like, because wherever man goes, it's a disaster. Because in that book Sapiens, it said that when the first explorers got to Australia, like all the animals were huge, like everything was
Yes.
massive, like the koalas like were the size of bears.
Yeah.
And when man found it and started to explore, well, things started to die. They called it global warming, but really
Hmm.
it was man's infection of the planet, of that continent.
Yes.
So that's what I'm thinking is going to happen again. And then, of course, they'll blame global warming when meanwhile, humans are the actual global warming.
Right.
Just call us global warming because that's all it is. It's us
Well,
causing all the problems.
you're right. Humans are the virus. It's us. Like we're the ones, we're the ones causing all the problems.
Yeah.
And so, it stands absolutely to reason that we would not be allowed down there. They wouldn't want us to go down there. But you're right as well when you say they should just tell us this stuff, because
Yes.
when you grow up, and it, on the wow, I've got another thought on that, which is that
Mm.
it's important what they tell us and how they frame it.
Yes.
It's like if you put a lion, okay, if you put a lion in front of a baby, the baby isn't going to be scared of the lion. It doesn't know to be scared yet. It doesn't know it should be scared. It's just another animal in front of it. But as that baby grows up and it's told through books and stories and TV and media and all this stuff that lions are scary, it's now scared
Mhm.
of the lion.
Right.
So if, like you say, from birth, if we're just told the truth and that there's nothing to be afraid of, but yeah, there's all these other civilizations and other people and other beings and everything, then we grow up not being afraid of it. But
Mhm.
because we grow up in a very different world where aliens are scary, things we don't understand are scary, other civilizations are
Mhm.
scary, these things can't exist. If it does, it's scary. Fear, fear, fear,
Mhm.
fear, fear, fear. We're told to be afraid of things. So our default position when we see something we don't understand is, I'm scared.
Yeah.
Instead of
Yeah.
being what I feel really should be a feeling of curiosity. Like, oh, cool. There's something new. There's something different. Someone new. Maybe I can learn something off this being or this animal
Yeah.
or whatever it is. But we're so indoctrinated to be fearful of all of these things. And you mentioned the no-fly zone over the poles as well.
Mhm.
And it's very, very convenient that NASA will block out images of the poles. They will even go as far as, you know, putting pixels over the
Yeah.
over
Yeah.
those areas.
Like we
And
can't see the pixels. Like how stupid do they think we
yeah,
are? Is
yeah,
the main question.
exactly, exactly.
Oh
And
boy.
but this guy, just going back to Byrd quickly, Admiral Byrd, this American
Mm.
admiral who went on an expedition there. Well, it was a mission, and it had a name. The operation had a name, Operation High Jump. It was an official mission, and I'm just reading it here because I don't want to get it wrong. 4,000 soldiers, 13 Navy ships, aircraft carriers, helicopters, boats, and a whole lot of aeroplanes sent to Antarctica. They said it was to do research. They later admitted it was to try and find the Nazis. But what I'm getting to here is the part where you said, would they have been, or would people who get close be shot down, attacked, things like that?
Oh.
And the reason that Admiral Byrd stopped this operation and came home, brought everybody home, was because of that exact reason. The American planes and ships and soldiers were being attacked. Now, they called it being attacked, but I prefer to say they reached a certain point and the beings got defensive and said, well, you can't come with all of your planes
Yeah.
and ships and military might, so we will
Yeah.
take you out of the sky. And what they reported was flying discs in the sky. Now, I mean, we've all heard all the stories about UFOs and flying discs and all of those sorts of things. But
Mhm.
yeah, and my tinfoil hat is always firmly on this head. But
Mhm.
why would so many people? This is my question to the masses. Why would so many people from different continents, different places, different backgrounds, different civilizations, different cultures all report on the same thing? and then we're meant to believe that it's all false, fake, and made up.
Okay.
I cannot fathom that whatsoever. And you've got this guy, Admiral Byrd, is in charge of a whole fleet, an entire naval fleet, and this was what he said happened. So, you know, I'm a believer. I think there is something down there. I don't know what it is, and with everything else that we always talk about, like I haven't seen it with my own eyes, but I believe that it is there. Something is there,
Yes.
and I do
Yes.
believe there are other civilizations there. The whole lining up of all the sevens for me, the
Hmm.
Egyptians, the Mayans, the Atlanteans, Sumerian, like all of that, I believe are in some capacity those civilizations exist underground now.
Yeah, because people, places, and things just don't disappear. Much like all the disappearance, like all the people that disappear, Bermuda Triangle. Is that a
Yes,
portal?
yes.
As they said that we can get in through the poles. There's underground because obviously we haven't experienced all of what under the sea has to offer. So they actually said they claim that that's how Hitler got in, was by via submarine. That's how he got in.
Uh-huh.
He had backdoor access. So he went through the water, and they also say the Bermuda Triangle could possibly be a portal, and because there are portals and they shift and they move. And the one that the highest military use is actually in New Mexico.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Interesting. Interesting.
Interesting, right?
Yes.
Very interesting that that's where it was. They, because this Emery, I forget his name. I want to say Smith, but I think that's too generic for this guy. This guy Emery, he's been down there, and he's in the military, and he gets he's a specimen collector. That's what he does. And they go through portals. And he says the portals shift.
Hmm.
But the main one, like they'll shift, he said, but you'll never be able to get close to them, because what they found was that people did just kind of like roam right into one. So they have to make sure that they're under lock and key. So people like me and you just don't stumble into it and end
Right.
up over there and say, well, what, like, what the fuck am I? Like, what just happened?
Yeah.
Like, honestly, what the hell just happened? But he said because the earth is always moving and energy always moves, and portals are energy, that they are always moving. So where you go in won't necessarily be where you come out.
Right.
So that's why. So, and another one that I thought was really interesting, in one of the caves, what did they say about just walking in a cave and not knowing that you could be
Yes, that's
beside a
right.
door?
Yeah.
So fascinating.
I guess we would call it holographic technology, something like to that effect. But
Yeah.
they said, and it was this military guy the researcher who's been down there, and there's multiple military people who have been down there and everything.
Mm.
But what he said was hundreds, even thousands of people could have come across, been standing right next to these portals within the cave systems and everything like that, and would have had no idea. It would have just felt like solid rock to them because the technology is so advanced in that kind of holographic sense that you don't know it's there. You could be standing right
Mm.
next to it. Which makes a lot of sense to me, because one of the things that I asked myself when we were looking into this is lots of people explore and lots of people do cave exploring. And so
Hmm.
if it can be reached by humans, then it would stand to reason to me that these curious cave diving people would have found it. They would have found something. But
Right.
then if you can't see the portals, or at least all of them, then it would make sense that you can't get in there unless you're allowed, I suppose. Um, and yeah, it's really it's really interesting about the Bermuda Triangle, the poles, like all of these key places as well. Um, but New Mexico, what an interesting place for there to be the main portal for the US. And
Yeah.
well, what else has happened over New Mexico? I don't know, a few things to do
Eh,
with
yeah,
sources
just a
and
couple.
yeah,
Yeah.
just a couple
Yeah,
of things.
just a couple.
But I
Yeah.
wanted to, and I nearly forgot, and I can't remember this guy's name, but one of the military guys that were being interviewed about this, the researchers, was asked, and this was back in 2020, this interview was done. He was asked, do you think there will be any form of disclosure about aliens, UFOs, other terrestrial beings And his answer, this is back in 2020, so, nearly 2 years ago, his answer was, I was told by a brigadier general that within 6 to 24 months, there would be some form of disclosure about these beings. And what happened very recently with Pentagon? They gave some admission that there's unidentified flying objects, UFOs. So there's some disclosure that was foreshadowed back in 2020 by this guy.
Yeah. Yeah, they know. And the thing is, and we've talked about this, like, man, you want us to trust you? Stop fucking lying.
Bitch,
Don't
please.
gaslight me and say, that's not real. What you saw wasn't real. What this guy over here, he's crazy. He's on drugs. Oh, by the by, 20 years later, no, y'all were right. We just didn't,
Yeah. Yeah, you were right.
It's not a good look.
No.
Yeah, it's not a good look when you're trying to convince a pack of people to trust you. When you're constantly lying, it's ridiculous. And then they wonder why they're a goddamn joke. Well,
That's
they're a
right.
joke to me anyway.
Oh, and me. Like, they're fucking ridiculous because, like,
And I'm sorry.
wait, what? But you can't trust them with the tiny little things. The tiniest little things you can't trust the government with. So why in the name of Zeus's butthole would I trust them with some of the biggest, most important things in history? Absolutely not. Not trusting them as far as I could throw them. And, you know, like, as far as energy systems and things like that go and how it's powered down there, yes, because I know people would be thinking, well, how would you grow things and stuff like that? Well, they do have a sun down there. It's not like the sun that we see that's in space, but it's a created sun underneath, and they also have a lot of bioluminescent organisms under there that naturally create light and everything like that. So it's not as if it's like this big dark nothing under there. There is light.
There is, and that Emery guy did say, well, was it him that took the ride on the sloth thing? Anyway, one of the guys, I forget his name now. I forget who I was watching. Watched so many of them. He said it was really, really dark in the area that he was at. Like, he was on a mission and he had to get from one side to the other, and the only way across was to hitch a ride. And it's not like you're hauling an Uber or a taxi. You're hitching a ride on a giant. And when we mean giant, we don't mean like 7 foot, 8 foot. He's like huge sloth-like creature.
100 foot, like 150.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I've got a picture. So I'm going to put up a picture of his depiction of like the human size to the sloth size. And he said that like the it's almost like got dreadlock hair.
Yes.
But like really, really thick. It would be like a few feet thick, and with one twirl of its fur, it could take anything out, like planes and bombs and any kind of anything would just be whipped away. So I guess they're like the gatekeepers. I don't know that I would make it my gatekeeper if it was willing to take the job.
True.
That's how I would do it. But he said it was pretty dark. It was pretty dark in some of the areas, but that was in the area that he was in.
Right.
And as we said, this covers the entire planet. So wherever there is land mass or even ocean mass, there would be room down there. So it's not like I don't think it's what people think it would be.
No, that's right.
I think it would be much more
open and
expansive.
Yeah. Well, and some of them described it as just to give people perspective on that. Like, some people described it as being some areas as large as the state of Nevada. Now, I don't know how big Nevada is, but it's a freaking state, so it's huge. So some of the areas being as big as that, and they could even be bigger. But on that being that he talked about, I think he mentioned, I could be wrong, but I think he mentioned that was a layer beneath Agartha. So if we went down from here, you have like Agartha, which has Atala and the other like nation, I guess. And then he said he was beneath that further. So these beings were even more ancient than everything else. You know, in the way that he referred to them was as if they'd been there essentially since the beginning of the planet. since the beginning of the universe, even,
Yeah.
because they were just the they were everything basically. They were the
Yeah.
gatekeepers. They're the knowledge keepers. You know, all of those sorts of things. Really interesting.
Yeah.
Really interesting.
Yeah. Dude, what else is really interesting? What they said was under the pyramids. Because when we first started talking about this, before we actually did our deep dive, we started saying, like, what if it's the pyramids that are the portals?
Yeah.
Because no one's allowed underneath the pyramids ever. Like, you can try and you will get no, it's not happening.
Yeah.
What if, and well,
Mm-hmm.
son of a bitch, if there is not like almost a mirror image of the pyramid underneath it, as above so is below,
Yeah.
and as above so is below, that would make perfect sense.
Yep.
We're above, they're below,
I want
we're the
a
same.
million%.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize, despite my keen interest in Egypt, much as same as you, I didn't
Yeah.
realize that there were such extensive caves and tunnels underneath the Giza Plateau. And the key point there is they still won't let people go and explore deeper and deeper. They've got to level 7, but they're not allowed to go deeper. Now, what one of the really smart guys, who's like I can't remember his exact job, but he's like a researcher, Egyptologist, and he's like one of the only people who can translate the old Sumerian texts and stuff
Oh,
like that.
Anton Parks.
Anton Parks, that's him.
Yep.
Anyway,
Yep.
and he is marrying up the hieroglyphics and the Sumerian text and all of these different things to show how there was 7 levels underneath Egypt, or underneath the pyramids, and what each level depicted. And it was like, at a certain level, they had air filtration, they had power generation, and it was so interesting. I can't remember if it was level 6 or level 7, but they used the water, like you've mentioned on a previous one on our Pyramids podcast, about the Nile and the water table underneath. And so they used the water to generate power. And what was so cool was that basically the way he described it was that from underneath, the power was coming up, and the pyramids were actually used as a power source for portals, for whatever communication, whatever it was, everything they needed, basically. But it all links together yet again.
Yeah. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. And all of the pyramids that they've, like, all around, they are saying, like, they are all connected through this. So was it a power grid? Because they are
Yes.
lined up. They
Yes.
are lined up. We can see it. If you line them up along the globe, there's a linear path. Is it like our transformer lines here? Is that what they were?
Well, it would make sense. And
Is
then
that what they are? Are they still functioning? And we should probably not be going in and screwing up with them? Because remember, you said when you went to, we discussed this when we talked about our Egyptian episode, that when you were in the pyramids, you felt off.
yeah. Yeah, like I shouldn't have been, like it was like I shouldn't be here kind of
Yes.
feeling. Yeah.
Yeah. And is it because you really shouldn't have been there because you were getting too close? Like,
Yeah.
you are too close to something else that you shouldn't be getting close to.
Yeah. That's what it felt like. Like I mean, looking back now, yeah, that's what it is. And I didn't know the things I know now when I actually went there.
Right.
So yeah, I can't wait to go back and see if that feeling has changed. But that's definitely what it was like. And it makes sense to me that it would be a power grid, because it links up with not just, all those other pyramids, but it links up to like Easter Island and all of the Stonehenge, all of these other ancient architectural places. And so, yeah, it's exactly like that, I think, running a set of power lines across the world, except, you don't need power lines.
Because it had quartz crystal running underneath. So quartz is a power structure. it gives off power. It gives you more than enough power. That's why they use it in watches.
Mm-hmm.
It's fantastic for that. And water, and boom.
Yep.
And there's water systems down there too.
Yep.
Fresh water systems. They got probably cleaner water than we do.
Probably. Yeah.
Mm.
And the other interesting part of it, linking in to other places, is Turkey is actually a very ancient place. Not the Turkey we know now, obviously, but in ancient times. And Tibet, of course, which I find very interesting, is linked. So Giza in Egypt, Turkey, and Tibet are all linked underground as well. So, convenient. I say a little too convenient for it to be coincidence.
Yes, exactly. Crazy.
Well, geez, it's it's been a great conversation already. We probably could talk more, but do you feel like there's anything else we need to cover for today? Yeah.
Before we go, I just want to mention that that Emory gentleman said that when he was down there, there's spacecraft. It's great. Spacecraft so advanced that we cannot reverse engineer it at all. Have no idea what to do with it. So he said there's also beings like kind of frozen in time, like half through the wall. It's almost like something happened, like a cataclysm or something happened, and it wiped out a certain level or something.
Right. Yeah.
And because they say that we've been wiped out, they're like the Mayan calendar. I'll cover this one too real quick. The Mayan calendar says that there are 5 levels of 5 worlds. So the first world was taken out by fire. The next one was taken out by wind. The next one was taken out by ice. And when the ice melted, that was the flood. That was the flood that all ancient cultures talk about.
Right.
And so they think that maybe like one of those affected underneath as well. But these spacecrafts, they don't know what to do with them. They can't, they take them apart and they're like, we don't know what any of this is. We cannot do anything with it. So how are they getting in and out? Or is there an agreement? Because, well, there's got to be something, because the government is shifty and they don't like telling us the truth. So there's got to be some kind of agreement that they can just come in and out. And maybe that's why when they do take pictures of the earth, that they do their damnedest to keep the poles out of it, because maybe someone's coming in or out and they don't want anyone to see it.
Good point. Could
you imagine this being your job, trying to cover this up?
Oh, well,
from billions of people?
I can and I can't. Like, because it would say to me, none of it would surprise me personally. Like, just as me, like none of it would surprise me that all this stuff exists. But to then look at everybody else, and this is why I find this so hypocritical from governments and everything like that, because people would watch us right now. Some people out there will say, "Oh my gosh, they're crazy!" Like,
yeah,
Les and Stevie, they're nuts, right?
They've lost it.
They've lost it. There would be other people potentially who are part of covering all this stuff up right now, who would be watching us going, "Geez, they're onto it." Yeah. But looking at everybody else in the world going, they're crazy. They got no idea this is all going on. So
yes.
But you know, if that person then comes out as a whistleblower, oh, they're crazy, they're insane. Put them away. But they're the ones who are actually telling the truth. So it's all so hypocritical, convoluted, and ridiculous to me that they do this stuff. But you know, on the craft, there was mention too. He mentioned that I believe because there's a difference in atmospheric pressure underneath the Earth. Because if you think about the forces that operate on the surface, as you go deeper and deeper, they're different forces, and they're able to manipulate those. But in terms of the reverse engineering, I just had a thought that, you know, the same way that people can't access and everybody can't access the power of the pyramids and all of these things and the portals, maybe it's a spiritual connection, an energetic connection that switches the craft on. And let's be honest, these mofos don't have it. So they can't do it.
I wonder if you have to have a fully open third eye, and you need to, you need to
Ooh,
have,
yeah.
all your faculties in check, because we don't. We are
Mm,
dumbed down, and the government does it on purpose. They dumb us down on purpose to keep us low, to keep us in fear, to keep us small,
yeah.
because we could be able to turn on every single structure on, ever, with just our minds, if we could actually figure out how to do it. But they keep telling us that we can't. They keep telling us that we're stupid. They keep telling us that,
Yeah.
we should be afraid. So we are.
Yeah.
I think that's it.
And they
I
keep us
think that's
occupied
it. I
too.
think you nailed it.
They
Yes.
keep
Don't
us
they
occupied
ever?
because they just, just shut up with your crazy and get back to work. Go back to work.
Yep.
Go back to work.
Yep.
Pay your taxes. We
Yep.
want that money, and we need you to keep
Yep.
being a worker bee and producing all the resources that we want. And
Yep.
yeah, so they keep us occupied as well.
Yep.
But I'm glad you mentioned
Forcefully
that.
too.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's not like a please and thank you. It's a
Oh no.
here's a
It's a
gun if you
bitch,
don't.
please.
Yeah,
You're doing this. You're
that's
doing
it.
this.
Yeah, there's cactuses for everyone who doesn't want to do it.
That's right. Literally. Oh, you're
Mm-hmm.
screwed.
Yep. Well, I'm glad you brought that last point up though about the crafts and everything, because yeah, I feel like that's an important one. But I hope everyone enjoyed today's discussion, because I find it really interesting. I can't wait to see what people say in the comments, about what
Yeah.
their thoughts are on all this, if they've ever thought about it before. Really interesting.
And what they know that we don't know.
Oh, exactly. Yes.
Yes.
Bring
Yes.
us your brains, people. Bring us your
Yes.
brains. And I do not mean that in a zombie way.
Yeah. We will leave your brains intact.
Yes.
May pick them a little bit, but you'll be fine. You'll be fine. But everyone's going to be wearing their tinfoil hat anyway, so it's fine.
Right. They got full protection. It's all good.
Yeah, full protection. It's fine. So thank you so much for a great conversation once again.
Thank you. And I hope everyone enjoyed, and yeah, has a fantastic day, night, or afternoon, wherever you are.